I want to turn now to Jordan Frasier, now in our Washington bureau. He's a video reporter covering politics for the Washington Post. Thank you for joining us. I want to start with the fallout from the memo here. Congressman Nunes was asked if he read the FISA application. I want to play you a bite from Fox News of what he said on Friday.
Sure.
Did you read the actual FISA applications?
No, I didn't. And this has been one of these bogus news stories that have been put out. So the agreement we made with the Department of Justice was to create a reading room and allow one member and two investigators to go over and review the documents. I thought the best person on our committee would be the chairman of the Oversight Committee, Trey Gowdy, who has a long career as a federal prosecutor, to go and do this. And then they, over a series of meetings, would come back with their notes and brief the rest of the committee members.
Jordan, does that open Nunes up for more criticism, the fact that he didn't produce this memo, he didn't see the whole thing, the whole picture?
Right. I mean, I'm not sure there's much more criticism for Nunes. Like, he's been under harsh criticism this entire time for months at this point. So I don't think a little bit here makes much of a difference. Politically, though, this memo has already been successful, right? Because it has muddied the waters with the Russia investigation. This whole Russia concept is now so complicated that it's hard for anyone in the United States to keep it straight about what's happening. And so for the president, this is just another way to muddy the waters.
So when you're looking at the key players of this memo, you've got Sally Yates, you've got James Comey, both of them were fired by the president. You've got Dana Bente, Andrew McCabe, both resigned. And that leaves now the Deputy Attorney General, Rod Rosenstein. He's the only one left standing who actually signed off on the FISA application to monitor Carter Page. What does that say to you about his future? What does it say to you about the implications if he were to leave?
Right. So two things. What is important to note here is all of those names you listed off are multiple people that signed off on this. So to say that kind of discredits this argument that the investigation was politically motivated, that this FISA warrant had political motives, because multiple people over months and long periods of times, multiple judges all reviewed this and kept it going. So that sort of discredits that a little bit. But you also reach with Rod Rosenstein, it's a very important point that the fallout of this memo is, I think, what happens this week, what happens tomorrow, what the president decides to do now. If he fires Rod Rosenstein or puts pressure on Rosenstein to resign, we will have massive backlash from Capitol Hill. That would be, some people have called it a constitutional crisis. So going forward, that's what's will be important when it comes to the fallout from this from the memo, is what the president decides to do next.
And when you look at the House Intelligence Committee, I mean, this is a respected bipartisan oasis. It has been in the past. So do you think there's just irreparable damage at this point to its reputation?
Unfortunately, probably. We've seen let's look at it this way, right? There's multiple investigations into Russia on Capitol Hill. The Senate Intelligence Committee, the House Intelligence Committee, and then the Senate Judiciary Committee. Each one of these committees has had its problems. The House investigation in the House Intelligence Committee has been the one most fraught with politics and controversy. So it was already sort of this uphill battle for the credibility of the outcome of their investigation. The Senate Judiciary Committee has had a little bit of political maneuvering, a little bit of squabbling between the chairs, Dianne Feinstein and Chuck Grassley, but has generally, stayed pretty bipartisan. The most credible investigation going on Capitol Hill, I think, is in the Senate Intelligence Committee, where they have really been doing most of their work out of the public eye, behind closed doors, and really there's been no political squabbling out of that committee.
We haven't heard much, really, about it.
Correct, yeah.
Meanwhile, as all of this is going on, if you had asked me a week ago what you would be talking about today, I think it might have been the spending bill. I mean, we're standing on
immigration,
totally,
you name it.
Absolutely. We're just days away, though, when you talk about that spending bill, the risk of potentially another government shutdown. What are you hearing on that?
So it's interesting because, after the State of the Union, Republicans on Capitol Hill went to their winter retreat. So it's been quiet on Capitol Hill. Monday will be a really important day to see kind of what comes of this retreat. Were they able to make any progress toward an ultimate deal? I was talking to Senator Jeff Flake, who has been a frequent critic of President Trump. I talked to him after the State of the Union. And there is bipartisan agreement to do something for Dreamers and to do some sort of border security wall. That's where progress can be made. Where this gets messy when it comes to, tying immigration to the spending fight is when it comes to actual immigration reforms, whether that's visa lottery or chain migration. That's where that will get very complicated. But you mentioned we're running out of time here. We have 5 days. And so I think what we will probably see is another short-term continuing resolution like we have seen to keep the government funding, because shutting down the government again is not good for either party. No one wants to do that. But at the same time, we haven't seen the progress we need to see on immigration.
Doesn't it make it worse, though, Jordan, the further you kick the can down closer to midterms?
Absolutely. Yeah. The closer we get to midterms, the less and less. It's hard to think we could get less done in Washington. But yes, the closer we get to November, the less that will get done. What I think is also important, though, is Democrats, put a little bit of a safety net in here. The last time when they reopened the government, they said, if we don't have an immigration deal, we're putting the Dreamer bill on the floor for an up or down vote. And so we could see that happen and at least give Dreamers a little bit of security.
All right. Yeah, that March deadline is also nearing for them as well. Jordan Frasier in Washington. Thank you for joining us, Jordan.
Good to see you.